Was there an opening? Oh wow!
So,
oh,
I'm so
welcome everyone.
I said we're gonna do the countdown, and then
I also got my lights. My apologies. Love it.
Oh, we're doing it
I
live,
love it.
kids.
We're doing it
live. We are doing it live.
EJ, take us away.
Well, hey guys, welcome back to Knights of the Nerds Table. I'm your reluctant host, apparently, EJ. I'm back at it with my two boys, Josh and Dieter. We're here to talk to you about the new DC outing, Black Adam. So first of all, before we get into that, I want to discuss, just kind of introduce my boys here. I got Dieter beneath me right there. How you doing, Dieter?
I'm good. It's been a busy week for nerd stuff. We had Black Adam. I just got done watching the newest episode of Doctor Who, which came out today. Yes, I know it hasn't aired in the US yet. It's airing as we speak. Yes, I found a way to watch it anyways. Don't ask questions. Thank you very much for your time. How are you doing, Josh?
I'm doing very well. I'm excited to talk about this movie. I'm excited to be streaming with you guys again, hanging out, all that fun stuff. And I'm excited for our channel and its growth as we are closing in pretty quickly, actually, on 1,000 subs. We'll hopefully break 900 by the end of this week, and then we've only got 100 more to go. And that's our big goal. So please, if you're seeing this and you're not a subscriber, please hit that sub button. We'd love to keep growing, and we love making this content for you guys. And I'll be totally honest with you, we're going to keep doing it regardless of whether or not you subscribe. However, we would love it if you would. But yeah, let's dive right into this content here and start talking about Black Adam.
Yeah, real quick, guys. Real quick note, because we're going to have a guest here. What is Nerds? I was going to invite Nerd Squatch on here, but just for some reason in the chat wasn't able to. I don't think I'm friends with him on Facebook, which is my problem. So
you'll have to get his email, or you can send the link. The link that I sent you guys, you can post it in the group. The link I sent over email, you can send that. Peek behind the curtains, ladies and gentlemen.
I promise we thought we were ready for this stream.
After a couple different technical difficulties, my computer wasn't working.
I was ready for this stream. Yeah, it's their fault.
Love the ownership there, Dieter.
Ding.
Yeah, so
all right, well, let's hop into this. I just wanted to set the link. Let's go. And from this point on, hopefully no errors. But yeah, no. But all of us, I believe, were able to watch Black Adam yesterday. It came out on Thursday, but I was able to see it last night. So we all kind of got similar reactions. Now, before we go into the movie itself, I wanted to talk about Black Adam's origins a little bit. I'll go to Dieter for this, first of all, because let's be honest here, the origins are a little bit different from what was portrayed in the movie. I think in a lot of ways, and I'll kind of lead into this, a lot of ways the character was kind of changed for what it was in the comics to kind of fit what Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson wanted. Obviously, I feel like he was played much more as a villain in the comics. It was even more brutal than what they kind of leaned into, especially if you look at Jeff Johns' run recently.
Yeah. If you talk about the origin, but we can talk about it later. But there's definitely there's a reason that the anti-hero thing. That's not the movie didn't do that for the first time. But go ahead, Dieter.
Yeah, so basically Black Adam, he's had a couple of different origins in the comics, and they all base around the same general premise, which is Teth Adam was a man in an ancient civilization. In the comics, I believe, if memory serves, it was ancient Egypt, who was given the power of Shazam, the same power that Captain Marvel, now known as Shazam, holds. And basically,
all the powers of Shazam from S to M.
No, I can't. I can no. For Captain Marvel, yes, I can. It's Solomon, Hercules. Anyway, I forgot what A was. Oh yeah, they're censoring my shame right now. Thank you, Ken. Yeah. Anyways, not the point. Black Adam has a whole different set of gods, but basically, Black Adam has been the ultimate opposite to Captain Marvel for as long as he's been around. In
Does
the
that
more
mean
modern interpretations of the comics, Black Adam, or Teth Adam as he was known, was actually a high priest in ancient Egypt who had a lot of connections to the Princess Cheara and the Prince Qatar Hall, I believe, who ends up as Hawkman. His origins and the ancient stuff that goes into it is super, super needlessly complicated. But what you need to know is the modern interpretation of Black Adam is a character who is what is described as an anti-villain, a character with ultimately heroic, benevolent goals. But due to the way the story poses him and due to their methods, is still treated as a villain. And that is something we do end up seeing in this movie. Much like in the movie, Black Adam ends up in the comics being the ruler of a country called Kondak, which is a either Middle Eastern or Northern African nation that has been held captive by all kinds of colonists, and we'll talk about it. Before Black Adam jumps in and lays down a very, very strict law of justice. That's a thing with Black Adam, is he sees the world in shades of black and white, and his methods are completely ruthless in the comics. He is
basically, he's a fascist.
Very, very happy to like just rip people's heads off. Like the stuff you see on like The Boys and Invincible, Black Adam looks at those guys and is like, hold my beer. So yeah, that's a quick basic run of the Black Adam. He obviously has a lot of connections with the JSA, which we will definitely be talking about more as we go into this. Yeah, that's all I got. I apologize. I probably would have had more, but I was watching Doctor Who.
No, it's completely understandable. And I saw the spoiler for that, Dieter. As far as Doctor Who goes, won't go too far into it, but wow, interesting. And I can't wait to see how they pull that off. So we will
talk about it off stream for sure.
Absolutely. For sure. Josh, you want to add anything about the origins of Black Adam real quick before we move into the next subject?
Yeah, so before we get into the actual movie, all I really wanted to say, and Dieter really touched on this, is that it is something that happened in the comics already, this anti-villain idea. And when you put out your video on our channel, EJ, or watch this before you watch Black Adam video, someone had mentioned that in the comments, and very in a very intellectual and bright way, like pointed that out and kind of broke down the anti-villain and what that really means, and made like a solid point. I'm like, wow, like that was a well thought out. Like normally it's quick stuff on YouTube comment, you get you suck, boo, or great vid, guys, thanks, or but someone thought this long thoughtful comment out, and we both read it and appreciated it. And I just really wanted to point out that as of like semi recently, I can't put a year to it, but it's definitely within the last 10 years, that has been a theme in the comics for Black Adam, is for him to be an anti-villain and for him to go from the straight up villain to somebody who has, like Dieter said, these goals and overall morals that are good. However, he doesn't care what it takes to get there, right? So you have people like Superman, who are sort of his opposite in some ways, because he has the best of the best goals and morals, but also has a very, very strict, moral code and lines that he just refuses to cross, except for when he doesn't refuse to cross them. But typically refuses to cross, whereas Black Adam's like, I don't really care, if I need to, as Dieter said, rip this guy apart, literally, physically rip him apart to obtain what I think is the right thing, then no bones about it. No problem. And I think they did a really good job portraying that in the film. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to add anything else about the comic book origins before we just dive into the movie, because I think we're all excited to talk about it. But
I mean, real quick, I want to just shout out that commenter, because I looked it up, and it's who I thought it was. It's his handle on YouTube is No Justice, No Peace, which straight up love it. But I want to shout him out because I've seen him in some of our other in some of our other videos commenting on stuff, and they provide. I apologize. I don't know your pronouns. I shouldn't have assumed. They provide really really insightful comments and
For sure.
using little details like that in such a way as to really like build out a much more interesting point, which is not something I've ever seen in YouTube comments before. So hey, you're out there doing the Lord's work, and we appreciate it.
No, and it was something that I'd already considered, really, because it'd been in a lot of nerd circles for a while that people were saying, well, this movie is straying away from Black Adam's origins by having him appear more in the movie as an anti-hero rather than an anti-villain. And I agree with that to a certain extent. I think he's very similar to what we see with Venom, with Tom Hardy's Venom, where it's much closer to the anti-hero idea than the anti-villain. But I think for commercial reasons, sometimes I think we lean more into the anti-hero because we hear that more in society a little bit more. That word's a little bit more sunken into the psyche of how we understand things. Point. You know, so I think that's kind of why, because for the most part, let's be honest, we haven't really heard a lot of people say anti-villain before, you know?
Yeah.
If we haven't, that means the general audience hasn't. So that's probably why they leaned into it. The only other thing I would mention is that although this was definitely inspired by Jeff Johns' run in Black Adam, the one thing that I would have liked for them to do, but I just was wondering if it was going to be too dark, I would have loved for him to have the origin story with his nephew instead. Remember in the comics theater where his nephew was given the powers and he was trying to save Teth Adam, his uncle. But basically, once they decided that they had different goals as far as how to overthrow the government, Teth Adam actually snuffs out his nephew instead and becomes Black Adam.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
I've read that.
So I haven't read that one, but I heard about that when I was doing research, and I read about that storyline, and someone was laying that kind of storyline out and being like, "Wow, I wonder if they'll go down that path," and they did, but not with the son. But it was much more pure, right? Because it wasn't a snuffing out. But they made it very clear that who the son was and who Teth Adam was were different people when it came to self-control and overall morals. But it was still like a willing, here, I'm going to give you my powers, not, I'm going to kill you and take your powers, nephew, So yeah, I mean, we can just jump right into the movie at this point because I mean we're talking about it already. So
no, I think it is. And the one thing I wanted to mention there, and again, we'll talk about more in the things I didn't like necessarily. I thought that by giving it the origin that it did, I thought that basically it would have illustrated his anger, out of control anger more if they made it his fault that his nephew or son died. Because I think it would have illustrated a lot more kind of what his character would be. But I'll get into that more when we get to the critiques. I want to start off with some positives, talk about what we did like about the story. I see you, James, there. We are not yet. We're gonna kind of make that our post-credit scene. Not necessarily post-credit. We're gonna hang that a little later. Believe me, that's the one I'm most excited for as well, as most of my compadres.
Yeah, we're not trying to pull a Grace Randolph here and tell everyone what the post-credit scene is right up front. Grace.
Yeah, thanks, Grace. Yeah, so let me go ahead and kick it off then. So let's talk about what we liked about this movie. Let me go to you first, Dieter, because I know you've been chomping on the bit, and I'll go to Josh. I'll finish it off.
Obviously, we have to do the standard real quick. Spoiler alerts. Obviously,
spoiler.
We are about to talk about the movie. Believe it or not, the title of the stream, it's accurate. It's correct. We're gonna discuss Black Adam. So if you haven't seen it, if you don't know what happened, you don't want to see whatever, go watch it and then come back and check the stream out. After it's gone live. So you've been warned. Spoiler alert. We're gonna talk about the movie. All the ups and downs and in betweens. Dieter, take it away.
Definitely. So I saw someone on my Twitter feed post something along the lines of all these reviewers are saying that this movie is bad because it's not a lot of depth and a lot of action. And here I am, and all I wanted was cool action in the JSA, and I got what I wanted.
Positives.
There's a lot to like about this movie, but there's not a lot of depth. In terms of things that I loved, I mean, most of the action was really, really good, although it definitely relied a little too much on certain techniques from a certain director. And oh yes, we'll talk about it. Gotta keep them in suspense. The highlight of this movie for me was definitely the performances of pretty much all of the actors. Most of the actors were not given very intensely meaty roles. Like there was a lot of like surface level questions about various topics, which I'm definitely going to get into, but there wasn't a lot of in-depth work that could be done. But nevertheless, the entire cast just they were clearly on board. Obviously, Dwayne Johnson, you know, the man can he's so charismatic, and he can bring that energy that makes you want to watch him to anything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this role that he was doing was kind of a new thing for him, because he was really trying to push the pathos and the darkness, which is not something I've seen him do a lot. Outside of that, the rest of the cast was amazing. I particularly want to highlight Sarah Shahi, who played Adriana Tomaz. I thought, I've never seen her in anything before. I thought she was absolutely magnificent. She was able to go toe-to-toe with Dwayne Johnson every step of the way, and the dude is not just a tour de force of personality, but he's huge. He's a big dude. And she was squaring up to him every single time. It was so amazing. Quintessa Swindell as Maxine Hunkel, aka Cyclone. I just desperately want more of her. Pierce Brosnan as Kent Nelson, Dr. Fate, was amazing to me, because Dr. Fate is a character that's so very, very hard to make relatable and to make likable. And Brosnan did it while still being very true to the core of the character. And then finally, we got to talk about my man Aldous Hodge. So people who know me in real life will know that I am a huge, huge fan of a relatively little known TNT series from back in 2008 called Leverage.
Whoa, way back in 2008? Ancient
way back
times.
in 2008. Yeah. Over a decade ago. It had its final season of its original run literally a decade ago. Yeah. And Aldous Hodge, that's where I first saw Aldous Hodge. That was his big breakthrough role, was as Hardison on that show. And from that moment, when I saw that show, I was like, this dude is a star. The world just doesn't know it yet. And he has, like, honestly, like, my opinion, more charisma than Dwayne Johnson. And he was also coming at a role that I think is really, really difficult to make an audience connect with. Because much like Dr. Fate, Hawkman is a character that, for a variety of reasons, is very, very difficult for readers to connect with. Part of it is because he's just got so much complex, insane backstory that it's just, you can't just deal with him as a character. You have to deal with all of his baggage. And most people don't have the time for that. I'm one of them. But also, Carter in the comics is known for being a hard-ass, gruff, conservative, kind of
he's a
just
cop.
Stony person.
He's a cop.
And what's that?
He's a cop.
No, straight up. He's a cop, and also like a total colonizer, because he's an archaeologist.
Yeah.
Like, he'd be stealing all of the native and indigenous relics and just keeping them in a mansion in Louisiana. It's real weird.
Well, they made him black, so it's okay.
No, and we're gonna talk about it, but no. But I really felt that Aldous Hodge found a way to make him likable, strong, and heroic, while still not taking away from the fact that he does have what I think in the comics is a very naive view of the way things of the way that things should be. There is we're the heroes, there are villains. That's how this works. As opposed to a character like Green Arrow, who's like, yeah, but you know that some of those villains are like suffering from hundreds of years of oppression and systemic racism. And Carter Hall is just like, no, shut up. And then they fight, and it's good times. So that was great. Also, since we are talking about the racial aspect of this movie, I just want to point out a little thing that I noticed, which is in the climax of this movie, where Sabak has summoned all those demons, and all the Kandakis get together to fight them off. This is going to sound like a joke, but it is something that I genuinely think is true. I believe this is the first time in post-2001 American cinema that we have seen a group of dark-skinned, probably Middle Eastern people
very much so,
carrying improvised weapons, and we are meant to cheer for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I genuinely believe that is the case. And
I thought about
we'll
that
talk
too.
about it more when we talk about what we don't like, but I feel like this movie had a lot of things that it wanted to say and just didn't go deep enough with them, and that was one of those things.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I agree. What do you think, Josh? This is going to be the first time because Josh really kept things close to the chest.
Yeah, he played things close to the chest.
Josh, tell us what you like about this film, man. Tell me.
So there's a lot of things that I want to cover. So I guess I will just start spouting things off and hopefully make some semblance of sense throughout.
At least some of it for me, brother.
That was my method. I don't know if it worked, but that's what I tried to do.
So I think this movie's strongest aspect is its middle. I think that its bookends are what they are, and I don't want to expand on that too much because we're not talking about what we didn't like. We're talking about what we did like. I like the middle of this movie. I think this movie shines the most when the JSA and Black Adam are fighting, and when Black Adam is interacting with the family that he gets acquainted with and sort of spurs and inspires him to be more than just a jerk with a lot of power. I really, really liked this movie, and I think that it might be my favorite DCEU movie that I have seen.
Oh,
I think
coming out the box.
So
coming out the box.
Whoa.
There's a lot to like, and this is why I wanted to play it close to the vest, because I wasn't expecting it to be this good for me. Now,
I was not expecting this at all.
So if we talk about our rankings, right? Our rankings when we did our video ranking all the DCU movies up until this point, until this movie came out, I put Shazam as my number one, and it was my clear number one. I didn't have to, like the other spots, there was areas where I needed to think and process, and I actually had to watch Wonder Woman 84 just to confirm that yes, it sucks. It was rough. Pray for me. And
seen it.
Exactly. So but Shazam was number one, and that's the only movie that I still like. I need to watch Shazam again and watch Black Adam again before I can make the final call, but it's right there with Shazam for me. And you guys, I mean, definitely EJ knows how much I love that movie. I like it even better than a lot of the Marvel movies. So I would even go so far as to say that this movie is better than 95% of the current phase of Marvel. I really enjoyed this movie.
I'm not going that far.
This has to go on one of our shorts. Josh says that Black Adam, a DC movie, my friends, right?
Not only a DC movie, but the most Zack Snyder movie that DC has produced.
So the Zack Snyder influence is real, but let me let me make some points here, because I said the big thing, right? I said I love it. I think it's great. It might be the best one yet for DCEU. Here is why I really, really like it. Number one, I was actually concerned. Everybody always talks about the charisma of The Rock and how he just lights the scene up whenever he's in it. He's funny, he's personable, he's got all these things going for him. And everybody always said that, and myself included, kind of fell into the trap of like, oh, like it'll be good no matter what, because The Rock is so charismatic. So it's at least going to be, you know, a good popcorn movie. But I think it's better than that because he's not so charismatic, because he does a really good job of being stoic. And I think that someone with the level of charisma that The Rock has, bringing it down to be stoic, and not so stoic that it looks fake or unreal or lame, but he really nails it here, finding a nice balance between who he is as a real person, and you can see his heart and soul. He worked so hard on this movie, from production and his acting, and
Yep.
someone else that we'll talk about later on in the video that he convinced to come back, made it happen, all that was 1,000% all because of him. It does not happen without The Rock. The great cameo at the end. That's probably my favorite thing, is just how well The Rock did. The power, the fact that they didn't shy away from ripping people in half or taking on a whole army. There was no shying away. And there was reports, I'm sure you guys heard, that this movie was going to be rated R, and they had to trim some stuff out and adjust some shots so that it wouldn't get the rated R rating. They wanted to go deep.
I actually, when I was watching it, wondered if I couldn't remember what the rating was. I was like, wait, did they rate this R? Like, they didn't check.
Yeah, no, they clearly skirted a line. There was like, they had everything in it and went right up to that line, but it was just okay enough to, I think they were kind of the stamp approval of PG-13
on the line, actually, just kind of tap dancing on top of it at this point.
So I'm going to harken back to our last live stream when we were doing like a little news update, and we were talking about this. We were talking about Deadpool and Wolverine, and we were talking about The Last of Us. We had a whole string of things we were just chatting about, and we all kind of said, here's what I need to see in order for this movie to be a success. And for me, my biggest things were, I wanted to see it connected to Shazam. Boom, they did it. I wanted to see it definitely connected to the DCEU larger as a whole. The fact that they didn't do what they've done in all these other movies, where they're like, oh, we got to set all this stuff up and jam all this BS. And it was like, no, here's the JSA. Oh, you haven't met them? Too freaking bad. Here they go. They're going to go fight. Yeah. And then they had, in the beginning, they do the little montage with the kid where he's like, there's Batman and there's Aquaman and they show like the Flash, they show like 3 or 4 heroes, and it's actually Ben Affleck. It's actually Jason Momoa. It's actually the people that were playing those characters, and they don't waste any time with like, oh, look, it's some guy running really fast on gas station footage. Oh, that must be the Flash. And you guys know all the complaints, all the frustrations of the previous movies, and they put that all aside. There are parts that are, we'll get into like the dated stuff, but I don't think that that's fully the movie's fault. But the fact that they dove into that stuff, the fact that the action is really good and certainly does borrow from other things, but I don't care. I like it. I think it was good. It was entertaining. Again, the middle of this movie is really good. The battling between the JSA and Black Adam is amazing. Dr. Fate, so freaking cool. I loved how they did it, because I think myself and a lot of other people were very concerned that Dr. Fate was just going to be a Doctor Strange ripoff. And he wasn't.
Which because he's better.
They did enough DC, to make it look unique. There's definitely like reflections. There's definitely like, obviously you can draw comparisons. You could draw comparisons between the two comic book characters. I mean, you got Doctor Strange and Dr. Fate. Like, you could start there. Their names are super similar.
They once combined to become a single character called Doctor Strange Fate. That's a real thing.
I remember that.
And that sounds really badass. So
it was kind of bullshit, if I'm being honest.
So there's a lot for me to like about this, and I mean, I could go on and on, but I'm serious, and I want to push back a little bit on something you said, even about the depth, Dieter. I think there's more depth in this movie than people are giving it credit for. I think that the character development that happens
later.
I love that we will. I mean, we're gonna fight. I mean, what else is there?
It's what this channel is about.
Tales all this time, So you threw me off balance there. I gotta regain the train of thought. So, yes, depth. There is much more depth in this movie than I think people are giving it credit for. Because I was listening to some reviews in preparation for this earlier today. And after seeing the movie, and talked about it with Lexi, obviously, and some other people, and I I just don't like agree. I think there's a lot of depth. I think that even the JSA, each one of them is their own character. Like a lot of the critics, if you read what they're saying, all these critics that say it sucks and it's no good, they're saying there's no depth. They're saying it's just cookie cutters, like just boom, superhero, boom, superhero. Each one of the JSA members has their own personality, has their own journey that they take throughout the movie. You've got a little bit of a romance going on between Cyclone and Atom Smasher. Like each one of them is their own thing, and they're having their own journey. So I mean, I thought this movie was excellent, and anybody who says otherwise, I think just needs to watch it again and readjust.
Well, guys, it's my turn.
You will be corrected.
Wow. That's strong, Dieter. So, fellas, last night I was able to smell what The Rock had been cooking. And guys, The Rock has been...
What'd you think about that, EJ?
What's up?
What'd you think about that? It doesn't matter what you thought about that.
And anyone who disagrees, I'm going to side with Josh a little bit. This movie I did like, right? So anyone who doesn't like it, that Dwayne The Rock Johnson GIF when he goes, "Shut up, beep." That's kind of how I feel.
Shut up, bitch.
Exactly. So first of all, he's been doing this. He was announced as this character 14 years ago. He actually posted a picture of what he looked like back when he was announced as this character. Now, he was originally supposed to be introduced in the Shazam movie, but Dwayne The Rock Johnson really fought because he wanted to make sure that we established Black Adam first. So Dieter kind of stole the line there, but I kind of put this in the chat right afterwards. I was like, and even my friends who are with me, who aren't big Zack Snyder fans, said this to me. He says, EJ, did Zack Snyder direct that movie?
Yeah,
guys,
remember I made the joke in the chat where I was like, guys, I had to Google it. I like pulled my phone. I was like, wait, who directed this? Are you sure it wasn't Zack Snyder?
It was Zack Snyder.
Yeah, Zack Snyder.
He directed the movie.
Tattoos on the other arm.
Yeah, exactly right. But absolutely, this was not just some nods to Zack Snyder. This is a whole-on sloppy wet kiss to the Snyderverse. It was. I mean, when you're talking about the
I don't disagree. I just don't like the metaphor.
You'll love it. Don't worry. Now, when you talk about the scene where Black Adam is in the water rising up, I'm thinking Man of Steel. It's not just even his DCEU. Bro, all the slave scenes looked like it had the same filter from 300.
300, straight out of 300.
I mean, you could cut that scene in the beginning and like plop it into 300 and nobody would blink. Everybody would be like, I wouldn't notice.
Yeah. Exactly. Maybe even some of his Dawn of the Dead.
And then later in the movie, they dine in hell. Like, it's fine.
Yeah. And then when they obviously just to jump in really quick, especially when I'll give you your reward, right? And he stabs the guy and shoves him off the cliff. I mean, this is Sparta.
Exactly.
I mean, it's the same exact thing.
Literally the same
aesthetic.
Thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so you see those memes where someone's doing a test and someone's checking the other person's notes and kind of like, yeah. That's what it felt like in a lot of ways. And I guess I wasn't totally on crack when I saw that. I mean, the things I like about this film, the action is great, guys. Like, these are the best action scenes that we've seen since Man of Steel and the Snyder Cut. Like, those guys, when it came to the actual action sequences, especially the way Black Adam does his speed is very similar to how they did Ferrora's speed in Man of Steel, as far as the actual look of how he moves. The action was great, man. The Rock did a great job, and there was great chemistry within the JSA. Now, I do have some criticisms of the JSA. Unlike Josh, I do think that this movie was light on plot, but that's okay.
Listen, we're talking about what we like right now, okay?
Exactly.
What we don't we'll have its time.
I liked it, though. I thought that it was a very fun outing, because when I saw the reviews, there's like 40% of Rotten Tomato. Oh, this feels like BVS all over again. I felt I started to get some trauma, from my.
You were like sad in both of our groups, like our group with you, me, and Brian. Like I could just see it. You were like, yeah, it's not getting really good reviews. Like you could hear the mope. You could just hear the mopey, sad, just depressed EJ through the messages.
I was upset. But I think these people, because the reason why they gave this film bad reviews, honestly, is because it had a lot of Zack Snyder influence, to be honest. Because they were like, oh, well, this looks like Man of
Steel. It's just a repeat. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that's what most of the criticisms were saying.
Is that's not a real criticism, though.
Is that it's not doing anything on its own. That's most of what I saw was people criticizing it, specifically critics saying it's unoriginal. There's like almost nothing original about it. Everything's just copied from something else.
And I'll be honest, like as far as slow-mo goes, guys, like this movie, if we counted the slow-mo shots, it could definitely basically go up against any of Snyder's movies, to be honest, and the way they did it too. It's like
if you cut out all the slow-mo shots from this movie, you would have enough footage to make Zack Snyder's Justice League over again. And that's a 4-hour movie.
No, exactly. So I thought there was a lot of Dr. Fate was chill. I will say I wish I spent more time with the JSA. I liked Hawkman. I liked Hawkman's character. I think he could have been a little bit more fleshed out, but enjoyed him overall. I think he was great for comic relief. Like when Adam Smasher kept messing up, he'd be like, "Me and you, guy, me and you." I started laughing at that point.
Honestly, one of the funniest parts of the whole movie is when Adam Smasher is running. He's like, "I'm zeroing in on your location," and you just see the explosion. And it's like going the complete wrong direction. I think they did a really good job using the Atom Smasher as comic relief,
and they didn't do it in a Marvel way,
almost like Tom Holland-esque with his innocence and just sort of goofy awkwardness. But I don't think it came across too strong.
And it wasn't quippy humor, because Marvel's usually very quippy. This is just more situational humor, which I think the DC needs to lean into. And they don't need to be Marvel. And The Rock said this as well. I don't want us to be Marvel. Marvel's going to do their own thing. This felt specifically like a DC film, and it did fit more into the universe where you see Wonder Woman cut off Steppenwolf's head when you see Black Adam tear up, Sabak. So definitely it was an absolute homage to it. It's basically when you see a guy who went out with this girl and he was like, oh, and he broke up with her. He was like, oh yeah, I'll never go out with a girl like that again. Then you see him with his next girlfriend. He looks exactly like her, like the old one. That's how I would describe this. It's a very interesting.
That sounded anecdotal.
Very anecdotal. But yeah, so I like the film. I don't know if it's my favorite, though. I would probably make it my top 3 or 5.
This is insane, because what's going to happen is I'm going to rate this higher than either one of you, and I don't think that is ever. Actually, no, I don't need to think. It's literally never happened like that.
Certainly not on any DC property.
Yeah, you're gonna be. I guess we disagree on DC properties in general, but like the ones that I'm higher on than you, it's just because you have like your weird outlier ones. Like there's none of them that I'm higher on than you. That's like weird. That's not like the general public doesn't agree with me.
Actually,
like, the general public really likes Shazam.
Hold on, let's talk about that poll though. We'll bring that up really quick. So we had our poll done. I don't know if Dieter, if you watched.
I'm gonna look. You talk about it. I'm gonna check it live right now. Go ahead.
All right. So Dieter, we did put our poll up. We had 50 people vote, which was excellent for a turnout for us.
Yep.
So a couple of weeks ago, guys, I put out a video where we talked about our kind of collective choices for the top movies of the DCEU. Now, for us as a team, and I combined it with our friend Nerd Squatch because we all kind of rated the films. We chose Wonder Woman as our top collective choice, followed by The Suicide Squad by James Gunn and Snyder Cut. So we put up a poll to see what our audience thought about those
I just want to point out my favorite DCEU movie didn't even make the top 3.
It was Birds of Prey, wasn't
Birds of Prey, baby.
I've heard other people choose it though, Dieter, so it's not like a total outlier, I'm not gonna call you a total weirdo in it, but I was very interested to see the results. And no, I didn't stack the box or anything, so you can't accuse. I didn't go out and hire bots or anything, But Dieter, are you ready to hear the results? Josh, you have it here, don't you? I have it on my phone as well.
Yeah, I have it right here. I was trying to take a quick snippet of it and post it right on the stream, but I'll just say it. So Snyder Cut won with 42% of the votes. Wonder Woman
That's
came
massive.
in at 18%. Oh, hold on, let's finish. Wonder Woman came in at 18%. The Suicide Squad came in at 26%. And then comment below was 14%. So just, the other category.
That's
and
almost
it looks
50%.
Let me see. Yeah, I said Shazam. Lexi said Shazam. We had someone chime in and say Aquaman, Wonder Woman from Nerd Squanch. Dieter's here with his Birds of Prey. Yeah, so the Snyder Cut did win, and I get it. There are a lot of people, and EJ does have a lot of disposable income to pay people to come and vote for his selection on our page. So I understand why the W is there. But
we don't have that kind of wealth over here. I'm still using Amazon Basics, Mike, because that's all I can afford.
No, but what I was going to say is that basically, at least the choices that I chose, you can't necessarily say they're fringe anymore. At least that one in particular. Some of the other ones maybe. But
no, Snyder Cut's not a fringe one. I just like giving you crap.
Yeah, 42% babies. Let's go, Snyder Nation. Anyway, I wanted to hop into what we didn't like, and I'm going to go the other way this time. So I'll start. Josh will go, then Dieter. Yeah, guys. So when I read the reviews, I was like Josh. I was kind of upset because no matter what, I wanted to see the DCEU do well. Didn't want to see us get slapped in the face. I thought The Rock with his star power could really bring about a movie that we could be proud of. That I don't have to be ashamed of saying that I liked. I go to any party.
It's just funny to me because it's sad that you have to qualify it with that. It's sad that you have to be like, the DC has taken the fans to a point where they're like, gee, I really hope that I'm not embarrassed to say that I like this next installment that they come up with.
Exactly. So I don't have to fight for my right to love this movie.
Yeah.
But there are some issues. I'll write up a couple of things. First of all, there's almost no plot, and that's okay. Because I think the action, the spectacle was enough to keep me entertained. But the plot was very flimsy. They didn't necessarily explore the JSA. I know Josh was like, oh yeah, I like that they didn't kind of give them a backstory. The JSA is so prominent that I feel like we needed one. We needed to kind of dive deeper into those, maybe with a movie beforehand or something to that effect. But all those characters, including Dr. Fate, it's just such iconic characters. And maybe I'm appealing to you a little bit, Dieter, but these guys, they're just so awesome. I saw them in the comics, in the Justice League Unlimited cartoons. These guys are just so cool. And I would have loved to spend some more time with them, but their chemistry was great. The chemistry on screen, awesome. They all did a great job. But I would have loved to have spent more time with them and known them a little bit more. Because Hawkman, I like his actor. I think he was funny, but he was very one note, man. He's just a Rick Flag character, Rick Flag was basically the same way. Straight arrow. I'm the cop. I'm doing this. Let's say things. There's a certain right and wrong way to do things, whatever, And I just felt like there could have been so much more done with those characters. They also could have done more with Intergang. They didn't really talk about that much. In the comics, Intergang has connections to Darkseid. Darkseid gives them their tech. They also didn't talk. What was that that material that was on their material that they were gathering? What's up?
Eternium.
I keep on getting mixed up with vibranium and all that good stuff. Eternium. They didn't really dig into that very much. There were so many unanswered questions. And a lot of times as well, I felt like the characterization was a little sudden. Like when you get to the part of the film where Black Adam all of a sudden gives up his powers and it turns himself in, I didn't really see a character arc for that. Now, I know that we wanted to give him for the finale so he could come out strong and put him away so he can save the day. But I didn't really see the character arc to get there, And there was some inconsistencies when it came to his. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
I disagree with everything you're saying, but it's in the opposite way. Oh,
Josh is in Josh is going to be on the island for the first time. I'm usually on the island by myself fighting off these two. Now it's going to be a little 2-on-1 action, which I've been looking forward to this, Dieter. Thank you. But that's kind of my criticisms of the film because that's what but the thing is, I'm fine with that. Like, even though these are things that are true about it, the pacing was off at times, they didn't really build out Sabak as a character that much. He just basically, I mean, that actor, I forget his name, he played Jafar in the Disney Aladdin that we recently saw, reboot. He turned into a big red guy in Aladdin too. He turned into a big red guy here as well. So, you know, I just wish Sabak is a much more interesting character. I felt like we could have built him out a little bit more, but there really wasn't that much time to hang out with these guys. And I hope to spend some more time with them in the future. But yeah, the plot, the pacing could have been a little bit better. Characterization could have been better. And one other thing, and yes, my boys acted it a little bit better in this instance, but they could have really dug into the fact where they talk about how the established heroes, the JSA, never did anything to help the people of the country. Was it Kabak? What was it called again?
Kondak,
right? And that's a really good point, you know? That's a really good point. And we could have dug into that a little bit more. What does true justice really mean? If the established arbiters of justice aren't really going in and doing anything about it, then what are we really doing here? So
they did explore it though.
I didn't feel like they did a really good job in talking about it. So again, these are my criticisms. I still like the film.
Okay, that's great. I want to answer. I want to answer Logan's question.
My boy, Josh, go.
We have a question, so I'll go ahead and answer it. Logan said, "So I'm a little late to the party, but you guys think it was the typical Rock plays himself sort of deal? And if so, do you think it worked, as it sometimes does, or was more about his star power, general charisma than performance?" So earlier on in the stream, I'm glad that you asked this. I pointed this out, and one of probably my favorite thing about the film is that The Rock switched it up. And a lot of people thought that this movie was going to be super good because of how charismatic The Rock is in general, but he dialed the charisma down and really plays this much more stoic, much sort of deeper, more depth to him kind of character, and does it in a really, really good way without it coming across as disingenuous or off base, in my opinion. So I think he does a really good job of being charismatic enough, but that's not like, it's not the typical Dwayne The Rock Johnson. It's not the typical like smile and the eyebrows and the dancing pecs. Like he's actually like a really deep and sort of filled out character. So I don't think that it worked because The Rock played himself or because of his super charisma. I think it's because The Rock stepped outside of what it is that he typically would do, or what we would typically see from Dwayne, and did something deeper and much better, and something that you could clearly see his passion, his heart and soul was in this. So I just wanted to bring that up again, answer Logan's question. Thank you so much for watching, Logan. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Logan.
I'll also add to that. Here's the deal. I think he was still kind of in that. Was there something ringing? Weird. Someone's trying to call me. Anyway.
We're live, kids.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Someone tried to call me. But anyway, basically, he did step out a little bit too much out of his comfort zone. But you know, it wasn't that bad. So I know, Josh, you had some rebates or a little bit of a backlash to kind of what I said there, you know?
Some rebates.
Yes, I had some rebates and reboots on.
I know that call threw me off. My apologies.
Is it my time to reboot?
I think you need to reboot, EJ.
Yeah, I know, right?
So yeah, I do have some rebuttals for some of the things that you had said, but
let's have a back and forth. Let's do this.
Do you really want to have a back and forth?
Yes, let's do this.
So I think that they did have, they did address the whole JSA just not showing up. They're called out for it very specifically in one scene where, and this is one thing that I really enjoyed about the movie too, where the JSA is being called out for, like, we've been oppressed for years, but until this guy shows up, our hero, you guys don't give a crap about what's been happening to us. But now that you maybe will be threatened in your home because of this guy, because you feel threatened in your home, you're uncomfortable, you're, as a certain someone says at the end of the movie, you're making a lot of people nervous. That's when the JSA shows up and they're called out for it, and they don't have a good answer for it. They really, really don't. They're uncomfortable in the moment. And I think that it's communicated really, really well. And I think, again, I'm going to praise the movie for what I praised it for earlier, where I think them not spending all this time on these other things made it so that they could have so much action, so that they could have a movie that really stands alone by itself really well, but also is easy to build off of and then take to the next level with more characters and growing the DCEU, which is really the main thing that I think we all wanted. Was like, please, dear God, give us something that's like fun and exciting, that we can at least see a future, we can at least see potential for a universe to grow it, and not just have a bunch of one-offs and have like, okay, Batman's over here and then Joker's over here, and I know that they're like, you know, arch nemesis, but they got nothing to do with each other. It's totally completely separate and different. We don't want that. We don't want to do just what Marvel's doing, but we want to build out this universe. I honestly I think you're wrong. I think they did address that very question. I think they did it in a very good way. That's what I just said. They didn't have one. They really didn't have a good answer. Their excuse was basically just Hawkman being like, well, we need to protect, you know. He didn't have an answer. He didn't have a comeback. And that's the point, is that there wasn't a good answer, because it was a very good argument saying, why didn't you care about us until you got nervous about your own well-being? We didn't matter to you until your stuff was threatened. And that's a very, I mean, we don't need to get super political, but that is something that's very common throughout history, where certain powers that be don't really give a crap about the little guy until either the little guy has something that they want, or somebody's threatening the little guy that the big guy also feels threatened by. Then they all of a sudden give a crap.
Yeah, so I'll follow up with that. They'll let Dieter go. But what I mean by that in particular, and again, it's very similar as far as the theme is to BVS, because one of the first scenes there when you go to the Middle East is when they got the terrorist leader. We talked to Lois Lane, says, really, men of power obey neither policy or principle. And he told her that, you know, who pays for the planes that go over our heads? You're saying that America is neutral in this battle, but that's really not what America is really doing here. So it's talking about the conflict between who gets to decide what good is, who gets to decide who has power, right? And I think that's interesting. But I don't think that this film really gave us an answer to that question. It didn't say what the film wanted to try. So it kind of left that question open-ended. I would have loved if the film spent more time there and talking about.
But what if they do spend more time there, because they've got more films, they've got a whole universe,
and I'm fine with that. I'm absolutely 100% fine with it. I'm not saying that that's a terrible thing. Remember, I said I like this film. I enjoyed it. I'm just saying, if I had some criticism, I know these were already criticisms other people were saying. I agree with the criticism. I just feel like this film could have done a little bit more to dig into that. But I like the action, so I'm going to excuse it for what it was. Again, a couple other things I had issues with the character developments. I felt like some of the characters' development was out of line. It was sometimes off at some place. The pacing was a little bit off. But
what does that even mean, though? Like, that's so general. Like, some of the characters were off.
I gave you.
What are your examples?
I gave you an example from the beginning. I didn't see the character arc for Black Adam to give up his powers. Like, that's a very big thing.
So that's wrong too.
No, that's a very big thing for him in the comics. He does not give up.
He does have an arc. He has a whole. He absolutely does.
It was out of nowhere. I was like, why would he feel bad about this? Why would he give him like? It made
because of his son. Because of
I'm gonna jump in here.
Go for it,
I think I'm gonna say something real quick about that, because I see what EJ is saying. Is if you go back and if we storyboard this entire movie, the plot goes, we have the flashback where we see the hero of Kahndaq. Hero of Kahndaq gets woken up. Hero of Kahndaq fights the JSA. The JSA try to convince him to let go of his powers. He doesn't. He keeps fighting. Then he goes back to the throne room, and that's when we get the flashback revealing to us that the hero of Kahndaq was in fact his son, and he is not his son. He is the father.
Sure.
And I think genuinely, I think you both have really good points here. I will be your centrist for today.
Oh no, fence
Because
rider.
no, because I think you could fix the complaint that EJ has if they didn't try to treat the whole hero of Kondak thing as a twist. If we knew right from the start that Black Adam was just a father whose son was a martyr for a cause, who lost his son and all he could think about was revenge, and then have the rest of the movie play out where basically we know in the back of our minds that what everyone else thinks about this hero of Kondak, thinking that Black Adam is the hero when in fact Black Adam knows that he's not, then I think the character arc works. The problem is the motivation for the character. We learn about it at the same time that he makes that decision to turn. And I think that just moving that one scene and having that knowledge ahead of time instead of trying to treat it as a twist, I think would have fixed a lot of what EJ is concerned about.
Yeah, it just felt very sudden out of nowhere. And I just didn't see enough conviction in him to really make that choice on his own at that time, you know? I also thought that him destroying the throne at the end was not what Black Adam from the comics would have done. Now, could this
That's
Black
true,
Adam
but
do
it is what
Sure.
Black Adam in this movie would do.
Correct. Right? So I'm accepting what it is, but I would have preferred, because I feel like, because when you talk about the end scene, I think it makes it more powerful if he's sitting on the throne. Because it makes him seem more of a threat, like he's actually establishing himself. Because when you go back to see his arc, then you look at that end credit scene that we're going to talk about in a second.
Pretty sure he's in the throne room.
He's in the throne room, but he destroyed the throne. That was a huge character plot, right? But would have been more powerful for him to be sitting there on the throne talking to her. Because at that point, that shows, hey, you are assuming some type of dangerous leadership, and you actually kind of need to be dealt with a little bit. Whereas if you're just kind of just saying, all right, I destroyed the throne, and now I'm going to talk tough to Viola Davis, I don't know. That doesn't feel as organic.
I think it's because of what they want to develop. I guess so that we don't just keep arguing with each other. I'll say what I didn't like about the movie, and then we can argue about that. A couple of things. The first thing is Sabak. Again, I don't think that was done great. I didn't really care. Like, I think the idea of Sabak was cool. But again, just another example of where we have a pretty solid movie and it leads up to this final boss that just sort of kind of pops up out of nowhere. And in a sense that, like, we knew of Sabak, but then it just kind of like happens
and they did
in the most random kind of way.
Yeah.
It did seem sort of forced in there because it did feel like the JSA can't hold him off, and we don't really know who else could fight him. So we just have to like BS this villain at the end, kind of, and just jump him in. And the CGI is kind of odd, I guess. I feel like it could have been done better. I think he could have been a bit like nobody was scared. I mean, I wasn't. Like, obviously, again,
look like a video game bad guy.
When you have a movie, right? Superhero movie, good guys win, bad guy lose, right? So you're never truly worried, I guess. But there are times when I'm watching a show, like I'm rewatching all the Marvel Netflix shows, and there's times I've already seen them, but I literally still feel the anxiety, or I feel like the weight of like, oh no, so and so is in danger. Like, I know it's just a TV show. I know they end up winning, blah, blah, blah. But like, you feel the danger. You don't feel the danger with Sabak at all. And then Black Adam shows up and they fight, and they have the whole scene, and he ends up beating him. It was cool how he defeated him. I thought the whole ripping him in half thing was kind of a neat touch. The Dr. Fate sacrifice was like super predictable. Like that wasn't even remotely surprising.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed because I did really like Dr. Fate, and I obviously the helmet's still there. Obviously, Naboo could, they could bring Dr. Fate back in a myriad of ways. I just would have liked to have seen it continue more. with Pierce. And I guess my other big issue, this is like, I guess, very specific, but I don't recall anything about the throne and why the heck it mattered that Sabak needed to sit on it and then get more power. I don't recall any sort of mention of that.
I think
but
it was largely symbolic.
Do you guys know how, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like he's Dr. Fate's fighting him off, and then Hawkman shows up and they're like, don't let him get to the throne. Don't let him get to the throne. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
What, who cares? Like, and I get, but it was weird because he, as soon as he sits on it, he's like, "Arr!" And you're like, it's like filled with power, I guess. And I'm like, did I miss something? Because I don't recall at any point them being like, oh, if Sabak comes back, don't let him sit on the throne because it'll connect him to his. I mean, maybe there was a one-off line in there somewhere, but I have no recollection of it. So if it was going to be like this big, don't let him, like, I needed to know why. Like in that moment, I'm like, why can't he sit on the throne? Why does that matter? Why do I care? Why are we trying to stop him? Aren't we just trying to stop him in general? Why is his goal this throne? Like that, none of that made sense to me. And again, it could be stuff that I missed, but like, what's the point? You know,
what was the actual threat of Sabak and stuff like that? Like, what was his actual goals as far as just turning into a like, what was he going to do from there? Is he conquering the world? Is he? They said a world in flames, but all bad guys want the world in flames. You know, I don't know if that's like, you know, the biggest shocker.
And I guess the other thing is I'll circle back to what I said earlier on in the stream when I was talking about how I like the middle of this movie the best, and it's really the beginning and the end that are a little tough for me.
Yeah.
I don't mind a montage, right? I don't mind a quick, hey, let's get you caught up. Let's pump some information into you. Let's do the voiceover narrative. I don't mind that. Sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not. And I feel like this could have been done better because it feels to me like this movie was like a 4-hour long thing, and they were like, or 3-hour or whatever, like, hey, we got to cut all that other stuff out and we'll just do a voiceover montage and get everybody caught up, and then boom, we're off and running. I think they could have done better with that, and I think they could have done less, like less is more in that instance. I don't think I needed to know all that I was brought up to speed on because they kind of touch on things, and there's a lot of things that are easy to sort of like figure out, I guess, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's really the bookends of this film that I have issues with. Probably my biggest issue just being Sabak in general. They could just put that in the whole category of where I think there was so much more they could have done with Sabak, and the lead up to it, it just didn't have the weight that I want a finale, that I want, you know, a closing moment to feel like.
I know we chewed on this bone a little bit, Dieter, but you talked about my points a little bit. What did you have to say as far as the things you didn't like? Anything that we haven't brought up?
I'm glad I went last. I mean that sincerely, because Josh's defenses of this movie compel me. They really do, because re-examining it, I see his perspective, and I empathize with it. So originally, the big complaint, I had two big complaints about this movie. The first big complaint was going to be the lack of depth, and I'm going to amend that. I'm not going to say that it's not a problem, but I am going to amend it. I'm going to say, instead of a lack of depth, the problem is not taking opportunities while simultaneously trying to do too much. Which is a problem we have seen in movies from passionate individuals a lot. Most recently, Thor: Love and Thunder, but also like Spider-Man 3 was another superhero movie that tried to do too much, because this movie, first and foremost, wanted to be a fun action blockbuster that was a good time for you, and I think it definitely succeeded on that.
I think we all agree that we could check that box. Fun action movie.
That box, we're happy with that box. But it also wanted to be a critique of American interventionism in the Middle East, and the idea of America World Police. And it also wanted to ask you questions about moral codes with heroes. And it also wanted to be a story of a father trying desperately to collect the pieces of his life when his entire world has, in his case, quite literally been taken away from him. And it also wanted to introduce a ton of different characters. And
a lot on his shoulders.
Yeah, and I do think that all of those goals were from a very honest, very passionate place. But I think the problem is so many of those goals are there's so many of those things that you could just make a whole movie about, and that would be the movie, and it would be super
Yep.
satisfying. And so as a result, when you introduce those really, really huge ideas, if you do anything less than dedicate your focus on that one idea, it makes it feel like there's not a lot of depth. Because when Josh mentioned it, I did remember, actually they did kind of talk about the whole interventionism thing more than I had initially remembered going out of it. And I do think ultimately that is a flaw. The fact that going out of it, I didn't remember how much they talked about it, but it was because they were trying to discuss so many issues at once. And I do think the missed opportunities also extend to some of the characters, specifically the character of Al Rothstein, who I had a lot of problems with, actually. I think that his character, they really portrayed him as kind of the tag-along kid of the JSA, which is fine, but it made me really miss a lot of the stuff that they used as source material. Because in the comics, Al Rothstein, Atom Smasher, has a lot more of a fraught relationship with Black Adam, because he originally comes into the JSA trying to impress all of the older heroes, and quickly realizes that their brand of sanitized justice isn't for him. And actually aligns himself with Black Adam and Black Adam's initial liberation of Kahndaq in the Jeff Johns JSA run. And they kind of like winked and nodded at that by having Rothstein be the last person to leave when talking with Black Adam. But it just felt like a missed opportunity to give his character more depth by having him express some conflict and having a member of the JSA be kind of conflicted about these two opposing sides with Black Adam and Hawkman. But on the other hand, I guess if they had pursued that, that would have been a problem in and of itself, because it would have been, again, trying to do too much. So I think that's, for me, ultimately what the core of the problem of this movie is. And also one other thing. We have talked about how this is the most Zack Snyder-y movie since Zack Snyder was doing Justice League movies. And that's definitely true. But the director is not Zack Snyder. And that was a problem in and of itself. Let me explain what I mean. So recently, like a couple of days ago, a YouTuber and video essayist by the name of Patrick Willems recently released a about hour-long essay about the works of Zack Snyder, trying to come from it as a
I watched part of that.
It's a really good video. I highly recommend it. Honestly, it's much more critically coherent than anything I'm about to say, so you should probably just go watch that instead. But in that video, Patrick Willems talks a lot about a lot of different aspects of the Zack Snyder filmography. What is he interested in? What is he trying to say with his films? And also, what has he genuinely done well? And one of the things that Willems points out that Snyder did well was, he said, Zack Snyder basically has done more for slow motion filmmaking than any director since the Wachowskis made The Matrix.
Absolutely.
In terms of innovation, technical innovation, using it as a form of storytelling, and also using it to portray superpowers. And I actually am willing to agree with that statement. I think that is genuinely true. The problem that I had with this movie was it felt like the director, whose name is, I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Hang on. I have a pronunciation guide. It is, hang on. Jaume Collet-Serra, I believe is how you pronounce it. At least that's what YouTube tells me.
Good try.
Is not a director with that level of technical experience with the sort of stuff that Zack Snyder does. But everything about this movie felt like a very deliberate statement by Dwayne Johnson, felt like a very deliberate statement by the producers and the cast to try and create a Zack Snyder style film. That's good from a perspective of trying to keep a cohesive cinematic universe. It's worked very well in Marvel's case, but it's also a problem because Zack Snyder's filmmaking style is so uniquely his, and it's something that is so difficult to get right that, frankly, he screws it up 90% of the time. So when you have someone who's less experienced with slow motion, you get these really weird action shots. Like when Black Adam was trying to stop the bullet from hitting Eman, the child.
Yeah,
like,
that one was
the
weird.
look on his face was just so cartoonish. Or when the JSA were all jumping up to attack Sabak, they had these like overly styled grimaces on their faces, like, which works great for a quick shot, but when you slow it down, it looks ridiculous. And I went to go see I went to go see the movie with Steven, and Steven has not seen a lot of Zack Snyder styling, and so was not prepared for that level of slow motion. And after we got out of the movie, he was like, "Is there usually that much slow motion?" I was like, "Not like that much, but yes." And he was like, it took me out of so many of the action scenes because I couldn't tell if it was a parody or not. And I think that was a huge weakness in how much they relied on trying to use Zack Snyder's style without understanding why Zack Snyder's style, at least some of the time, really, really works.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I got.
No, that's an interesting conclusion to it. And I guess from a filmmaking perspective, I guess you would kind of want to build out your own cinematic language anyway. So even though I do appreciate the homage to Sir Zachary Edward Snyder himself.
Is his middle name actually Edward?
Yes. Yes.
I'm checking you on this because you keep going, but I'm checking you.
I think so. I could be mistaken. Maybe Tom Brady.
We're 100% correct. Zachary Edward Snyder. Oh my gosh, you are such a fanboy.
I know Tom Brady is Thomas Edward something Brady. Am I right, Josh?
Yes.
Yes.
The only celebrity whose middle name I know is Peter Benjamin Parker.
I love it. So yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying there, and I definitely want to preface again. I like this movie, Josh. Like I'm not coming up against you. I recognize his critiques, but I do like this movie. Genuinely like this movie. And with that in mind, we've been hiding it back for a while, guys. But it's time to get into this. At the end of the film, my boy The Rock was talking to Amanda Waller, and they were having some, "Oh, you ruined it." But basically,
I ruined it. You dragged it out forever. Talk faster.
I was trying to imitate Zack Snyder's slow motion, you know. But my man Henry Cavill is still Kal-El. I think the interesting thing, if you read those articles, is that this was not part of the plan originally. So the old Warner Brothers regime with Toby Emmerich and Walter Amada did not want Henry Cavill in this movie. They've been having headless cameos ever since Shazam, right? Now, the reason for that, I don't know if you both read it, but basically the reason for that is because in the Flash movie that may come out, who knows what's going to happen with that, what they wanted to do was to basically replace him in the universe with Supergirl. And so they were planning after the Justice League came out to kind of usher out Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck. So they wanted to reset the universe and have a Supergirl instead of a Superman.
Were they also planning on replacing Ben Affleck with Batgirl? Because
yes.
Look how that worked out.
Yes. So it looks like there's a little bit of a course direction going in Warner Brothers right now. Put it that way.
No, course correction implies that someone's navigating and not just throwing things in a
That's
bin,
a really good point. That's a really good point. Yeah.
True. Now, I have this theory. True. You know when Henry Cavill didn't show up at Comic-Con because we heard a report that he was going to be there? I think The Rock was playing 3D chess, and he actually leaked that report on purpose just to pressure Warner Brothers into putting Henry Cavill in the movie because they didn't film that till September.
Yeah, that is crazy. Yeah,
like last month. That's
yeah,
when
like
they
last
filmed
Yeah,
month.
they literally just filmed it. So like that was last minute. They were struggling on contract negotiations for a while because they wanted Henry Cavill to be more of a cameo guy for a little bit. But Henry was like, no, I mean, if I'm going to do a movie, I want to have my own actual movie. And so that was kind of the standstill between them for quite some time.
Yeah.
But the fans really wanted him back. And what I'll say more than anything, I mean, there's a whole conversation about what the Snyder Cut really means. But what I think the Snyder Cut did more than anything was to put interest into actors like Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck again into their characters. I definitely believe that was a way to kind of put it back in the cultural zeitgeist. And that, along with what happened at Comic-Con, was able to kind of officially push them in that direction, especially with Danny Garcia, who is the agent, The Rock's agent and ex-wife. She's also the agent for Henry Cavill as well. So she was trying her damnness to get Henry Cavill in. And for 6 years, they said no. New leadership said yes, why not? So there's no deal in place right now. This was only a one-off, so there is no contract in place still. But this leaves the door open for a
handshake deal. It's a handshake deal.
I know. But yeah, let me
What do you guys think? Comment below if your
Yeah.
thoughts on Henry Cavill being back and whatnot. Like, join in the conversation live. Anybody who's watching, feel free to sound off. And I'm curious what you guys think.
I'll start off with Dieter. What did you think about this end scene? And what did you think about what it means overall for the DCEU?
It doesn't mean shit.
I love that.
Look, like I said before, in order to course correct, you need to have someone who's fucking navigating. And the fact of the matter is, at this point, from my perception, DC doesn't have that person. They don't have a plan. The plan is get ourselves out of debt as quickly as possible through whatever quick and dirty means we'll do it. And if that means that we use bankable names like Henry Cavill, then that's what we're going to do. And I genuinely, I have a conspiracy theory about this movie, which I've kind of alluded to already, which is that this movie was Dwayne Johnson, for lack of a better term, simping for Zack Snyder in front of the world. And I hesitate to use that term simping because it's got such a negative connotation. But it really feels like when you watch this movie, because of the direction, because of the writing, because of the way that they fought to get Henry Cavill in there, it feels like this is Dwayne Johnson saying to the world, I understand that the Snyder Cut is what you want. The Snyder Cut is what I want. It is for me. It is for the millions and millions of fans out there who love the Snyder Cut. And since I am a producer, I'm an executive producer, this is my baby, I'm going to use this to show Warner Brothers and everybody that not only is this what the world wants, but this is what will sell. And that is where I'm at with this. I think Henry Cavill is indicative more of The Rock and his opinion on what's going on than it has anything to do with Walter Hamada, David Zaslav, or Jeff Johns.
No, that's a good point. And before I kick it off to Josh, no, I think that's a really good point because regardless of the back and forth about with Snyder fans and all that good stuff, the return of Henry Cavill does please one group of fans. What group of fans does it please? Snyder fans. That's just who are you trying to appease to with that move? No, I mean, that's who you're appeasing, right?
Yeah.
So also,
we have a precedent for that because you told me that when they aired that Black Adam trailer that had all the clips from Joss Whedon's version of Justice League, that Dwayne Johnson, after the kickback to that, because Snyder fans are insane, they freaked out about the inclusion of.
He's talking about you, EJ. By the way, that's you.
And Dwayne Johnson went to his marketing team and was like, "Don't do that shit again." I fully imagine he had the guy up ready for the rock bottom. He's about to throw a people's elbow on one of these marketing guys. It's I think politics of this movie are so insane to me.
I think he hated being booed at Comic-Con because The Rock is not used to being booed. So when he said he didn't know who Superman was, that crowd, and that was not just Snyder fans, that was just the whole crowd in general, started booing it.
He does
You know?
not. He does not. I will tell you for a fact, Dwayne Johnson does not take to being booed very well. If you go back, if you ever get a chance and you're interested to see some of uh, The Rock's like work as a wrestler, his comeback in 2014, he had a conversation in the ring with John Cena, and John Cena called him out in ring in public for writing his promos down on his arm instead of speaking from the heart. The look on this man's face when the crowd realized that John Cena was right and started booing him in the middle of the ring. Whew, there was some spicy backstage politics about that too, which my friend Logan, who asked the question earlier, he will tell you, I'm sure, all about those because he knows way more about that era of wrestling than I do. But yeah, the man does not like being booed.
Yeah, Josh, let me kick it to you. What were your thoughts about this cameo? Were you happy to see Cavill back? And what do you think this could mean for the bigger DCEU going forward?
Yeah, I was very happy to see Henry back. I've made it very clear on this channel through different videos that we've done or definitely live streams. I very much like Henry as Superman. I think he's a great Superman. He is my favorite Superman live action. So of course, am happy to have him back. But I do agree with Dieter that this doesn't mean anything other than, oh, that's really cool. But it's, I feel like sometimes we do really bad analogies, but it's the only thing I think of. It's like a very toxic relationship that you just keep going back to. It's literally the definition of insanity, where we keep going back to DC and Warner Bros. Expecting a different result, right? That's insanity. Same thing over and over again, expecting something different to happen. That's us. That's a bunch of insane DC fans. And I loved this movie, but there's still in the back of my head, there's still all the baggage of all the crap that we've been through as fans, between cancellations and pushbacks and straight up just things never happening, or even times where I feel like we've just been straight up flat out lied to about things. And I think that's always
like the fact that the Flash movie exists.
Yes. And
you heard it here first. It's a hoax.
Yeah. So I think really my big concern is that we saw his face. He had a line or two. Awesome. A Man of Steel 2 is
that'll be 10 years ago.
Being attempted.
Yeah, Man of Steel came out in 2013, guys. Like, we would be at least 10 years removed from his first solo album. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So for context, that is the same amount of time between Iron Man and Avengers Infinity War.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but my main point being that they're working on it, but again, it's all rumors. It's all maybe. There's not pen to paper on this stuff. And until there's pen to paper, that's like the next step of like, okay, there's a contract. And then once there's a contract, it's okay, it's in development. Okay, there's being actors and actresses announced, there's roles. Oh, we're starting to get plot rumors. We're starting to get, those things. Once the ball gets rolling, then it's easier to get more and more excited about it, because even though they pulled the plug on Batgirl, I just can't imagine them getting to the point that they got with Batgirl, getting to like that point with like a Superman, like a Man of Steel 2. Oh my goodness. And then pulling the plug. Oh my goodness. The world would be on fire.
We riot.
So
we riot.
Find better things to riot about.
Right. I am very, very hopeful. I'm obviously speaking facetiously because we're just talking about movies here, right?
Of course.
We get excited about it, but it's and at the end of the day, it's not life or death, obviously, but we do care about it a lot, and we enjoy the content clearly. So, I mean, we can go right in, and I'll talk about our ratings here.
Well, before we go into the ratings, actually, Josh, I had a question for Dieter. Actually,
take that off the screen.
Yeah.
Okay, I will.
For the ratings, we have a couple more things that I wanted to get through. Actually, obviously, the big news recently with Walter Amada leaving. Dieter, I know you know a little bit more about the production side of things. Walter Hamada had a very tumultuous time over at DC, to be honest. Some things were his fault, some things weren't, you know. Ray Fisher stuff aside, how do you feel that Walter Hamada's time at DC went for him? What did you like? What did you didn't like?
Oh God. Well,
I know that's a deep question, but
I was talking
worth
about
asking.
this with Steven when we were driving home, because Steven was like, so Zack Snyder is basically the Kevin Feige of the DCEU, and I was like, no, I don't think that's really accurate. I think Zack Snyder is the he may hate this comparison, but I think Zack Snyder is to the DCEU what Joss Whedon was to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Actually, a combination of Joss Whedon and Jon Favreau in terms of setting tone, codifying the style of the movies, that sort of thing. I think Walter Hamada was what I think WB wanted him to be, Kevin Feige. I'm very hesitant to speculate on the specifics of exactly what went wrong with the DCEU because there's so much we don't know, and there's so much hearsay, and there's so much that's like there's so much ugliness back there in terms of people beefing with each other.
Yep, from Jeff Johns to
at the
Toby Emmerich.
Same time, I think that to a point, Walter Hamada was not ready for what he was being asked to do. Because I'm just doing a quick scroll through his producing credits, and really his producing credits they're consistent, but they're not consistent in the way that Feige's producing credits are. Because you have to understand that Kevin Feige does not have a producing credit in the film industry that is not Marvel related. That dude has been doing Marvel movies since Avi Arad was producing Spider-Man back in 1999.
That's crazy to think.
So Marvel was Feige's bread and butter. It was basically like everything he did was an apprenticeship to get him to where he is today. Hamada, on the other hand, comes from New Line Cinema, and so many of his production credits and everything like that are on like really off-kilter films. Like he did The Conjuring, Final
He has a horror background. New Line Films was horror before he it's mostly horror films.
And so he asking him to jump in and steer the ship that is the DC Extended Universe when it is not something that he has lived day in and day out is a huge ask. I'm not trying to say like this is like, oh, he's a fake geek girl thing. Like it's not that. It's just when you're trying to steer the freaking Titanic that is a cinematic universe, you have to, by virtue of your job, live, eat, sleep, breathe that universe. And that's a tremendous ask for anyone to do. I couldn't do it. Josh couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. Honestly, it's a miracle that Feige has done it. Like that's once in a generation. It's unreasonable to expect someone else to be able to do it. And yet Warner Brothers demanded that Walter Hamada do it. And I don't think he succeeded, but I don't think it's fair to condemn him for it either.
So I have a mixed opinion of him. So now the people that like Walter Hamada will point to movies such as The Batman, Aquaman, and Joker as some of his wins. Now I'm going to push back on this a little bit. Walter Hamada did not want Joker to come out. He thought that was going to be off-brand for the DC universe. He even cut funding for it. Like he did everything in his power, kind of not make the movie come out, but it was already approved before he got into his position. Came out, was a success. But if you try to sabotage a movie before it comes out, I don't think you can take credit for it coming out under your name. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just don't think that's the case. The Batman, fine. That's fine with me. But definitely not Joker. The biggest influence he wanted to lead away from lead up films. He wanted to make sure that the creative control for DC was not under one person as it was when Zack Snyder was kind of leading the ship. And he wanted to diversify, or some people would say tokenize a lot of the characters, like do a lot of race bending, a lot of gender bending of the characters, right? Which left much to be desired when you're going to like, I don't know, like replace Superman and Batman with Batgirl and Batwoman, which again, those characters are great. Batgirl rather, great characters on their own, but to replace the male characters with them would be something completely different when we haven't necessarily established them, right? I would like to see the whole Bat family, Batwoman, Batgirl, you know, Nightwing, everyone together. I think that would be really cool to see on screen at some point. But just the way to kind of erase all in the Flash, I think would have left a lot of hurt feelings from fans. And regardless, I mean, again, I don't know what happened with him and Ray Fisher that didn't go well, but they obviously didn't have a great relationship. I think that controversy totally did affect his tenure there, to be honest, whether he would like to admit it or not. And it made it so that he would never be loved. Like you would have people that would say, "Oh, he was all right, Walter," but he would never be loved. Because I heard that him and Sarnoff in particular, as executives, had trouble building relationships with talent, and that's what hurt him the most. Because no talent was upset that he left. Even The Rock in an interview recently, he was talking about, listen, I fought for 6 years to get there, but you know, it's a new day at Warner Brothers. Old leadership is out of there. He said it just like that. The old leadership is out of there. It's a new day. So The Rock saying that just means he didn't really care for you either. You know, it was like he's shedding tears. Oh, Walter bought his leave. Boo-hoo. He's like, yeah, don't let the door hit you on the way out, bud. You know, so I think that's kind of his legacy. Sorry to kind of go back on that, Josh, but I thought that would be interesting to talk about. I don't know if you know a lot about like the behind the scenes stuff like that, Josh, but do you have any opinion on Walter Amada at all, or he just stepped down officially as a DC?
No, you guys pretty much covered it all. I'll just mention that he didn't even go to the Black Adam premiere, so I think that kind of
did he not?
No, he did not.
I know that it's public knowledge that he basically, essentially, as soon as Batgirl was shelved,
because they didn't tell him before they shelved
that was when he was like, "I'm done. We're done with this."
Yeah,
yeah. So he didn't go to the Black Adam premiere, and I'm pretty sure his last day is like this week. I think. So, you guys pretty much.
On the other hand, his problems are of no concern to me.
Yeah,
man has made more money than I will see in my entire lifetime. I couldn't care.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally possible that it's just like you said, like when you get to that kind of like place in your life, you should be able to make a choice and say like, no, I don't want to do this. You know, he's not someone who has to be like, oh boy, I better, you know, keep this job. And also, I guess the other thing I'll mention is he's also not, you know, taking the traditional route of now becoming a producer for the studio. He's gone. Like he's leaving, and he doesn't want clearly, I guess, anything to do with them. And I think the feeling is mutual on both sides. Just, you know, the combination of not showing up and then completely severing, because I guess it's typical for execs when they step down to kind of move into more of a production role. So
yeah, because they let Toby Emmerich, who was the former CEO of Warner Brothers, they let him be a producer still on a lot of the new stuff coming out. They didn't let that with Walter Amada. They just kicked him unceremoniously to the curb.
Well, I don't know if we can use the language they didn't let him, because I don't know. Maybe I don't know, sources inside WB let me know, but all I've seen is that he's not. I haven't seen that was the studio's decision or his decision or both. I just know like typically it goes exec and then we'll hang out and be producers, and that makes sense. I think it certainly points to bad blood, but I don't know if it's the studio was like, heck no, you can't be here, or he was like, no, I'm not interested, or both.
Yeah, I mean, when they cancel your movie, Batgirl, that you put a lot of time in, you wanted to set up for your new Batman, and they cancel it without telling you, and you find out through another source. I think that's a way of just kind of, there's messages that can be sent without actually telling you to do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, all I'm saying is I just wanted to push back and say, like, we don't know the inner workings. We don't know these people personally, obviously. So all we know is what we see and what we can sort of discern from that. Certain conclusions can be drawn. Certainly, it does seem pretty clear and obvious there's bad blood, that there's, you know, there's some hurt feelings and, you know, there's people mad at other people.
Now we got bad blood. So we can now go to the official final night's ranking, Josh. I know I interrupted
So-
you before, but I'll let you
No,
go
it's
first.
it's
Josh.
okay. I thought that we would finish talking about the movie and give our rating on the movie and then talk about stuff that didn't have to do with the movie. But it's okay. We could do it a different way.
All
And
good.
we'll dive into our ratings now. I'm gonna give
You have
mine.
you have now reached the Josh gets really passive aggressive with EJ portion of our.
I
Came early this time. I'm excited.
passive aggressiveness is one of my gifts, if you want to call it that. So
It's a gift. And
it
a
is,
curse.
yeah. It keeps giving to those around me. So my rating, I'm gonna give it a.
I'm sorry that popped me.
No, it's okay. I'm gonna give it a 7.5. I really want to give it an 8. To be honest, but out of respect for you guys and what you brought to the table, even though I disagree with you, I am going to try and be as level-headed and as fair as possible.
Your opinion is your opinion.
Yeah,
if you want to give
yours
it an 8,
is yours, bro.
Own that 8.
Yeah,
I'll give it an 8. Fine. You talked me into it. 8
Yeah.
swords, 8 gleaming, shining, razor sharp blades, ready to cut down any BS EJ's about to spout out.
Oh gosh, who hurt you, bro? Who hurt you? I'll actually go ahead since
You.
mentioned probably. I've hurt a lot of people. Yeah, guys, I like this film. I can't hate it. I love the Zack Snyder references. I think they're pretty cool, but that's not the reason I like this film. This film is just balls to the wall fun. You know, I went with 2 of my boys to go see this film, and this was a great, just broing out, just super masculine, super high charge energy. Like it was just a great time. You know,
Yeah.
I enjoyed myself, and I think that even though it has its shortcomings, I would recommend you go see. I think the critics are being way too hard because it's a DC film. If this had a Marvel sticker on top of it, this would be 70% easily. This is better than Love and Thunder. Let's not play games. This is better than Doctor Strange. Let's not play games.
EJ.
Multiverse. Yeah, let's not stand on pretense here. All right.
I might actually
Another
agree
victim.
with the multiverse comment. I might agree.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I just look down
Doctor
there.
Strange and the Multiverse.
I just heard another person.
Was not a perfect movie, but
7.5
it
stars.
Movie.
It was good.
Go ahead, Dieter. Tell us what you.
Maybe we should do. We should. I don't know. Like I feel like we need to take the time and another live stream that we could do that could be fun. Is we need to like blend Marvel and DC and like the films and just like what are our top 10, like even outside Marvel DC, what are our top 10 superhero movies, and let's get heated and argue, and
that's definitely we're gonna
let's get mad at each other for those. I think that would be really fun.
I gotta put some work into a list like that.
I know. I'm gonna have to rewatch some stuff too, because there's some things I've only seen like once or twice. I'm like, I need to visit that again before I slap an official rating. But sorry, continue.
All right, so here's the thing. I'm going to tell you my ranking, and then I got to talk. So I'm giving this 6.5. What am I calling it? Gauntlets out of
Gauntlets
10. Yeah. But here's the thing.
Whatever he's about to say is probably irrelevant. So. Oh, sorry. Where did you go? Hey, you must be having connection issues. I'm sure we'll be right back, folks. Oh, hey, you got those connection issues figured out? Good for you. Man, technical difficulties, they're always tough. They're always tough.
I'm gonna smack the highlights out of your hair. Might want to get those roots touched up there, bro. Just saying.
Oh boy, I love you guys.
Anyway, here's what I gotta say. So 6.5 stars out of 10. But at the same time, I heartily recommend everyone go see this, So a couple of days ago, a fairly prominent comics YouTuber tweeted something where he said something along the lines of, I feel like the critics who give Black Adam low scores are the kind of people who sit around drinking wine while listening to fancy music and saying that movies are art. This dude was rightfully dragged on Twitter because A, movies are art. B, wine is good. Why are you hating on wine? It's spicy grape juice that gets you drunk. And C, have you ever listened to like really good classical music? That shit slaps. But at the same time, there is something to be said for going to see a fun movie where you can just turn your brain off and enjoy. And frankly, I do think that turning your brain on and thinking very, very critically about this movie will diminish your enjoyment of it. That is why I am not rating it as highly as these other two are, because it does ask questions that it's not ready to give you the answers to. It does have discussions that it is not willing to engage with at a full concrete level. It does make directorial mistakes like using too much slow motion. It does have weird kind of pacing issues in the start. All of these things are true, but I still had a great time. I still had fun watching it. Even the ending, which Josh was not so high on. Like, yeah, Sabak was a super lame villain, but watching The Rock beat up Sabak was still super fun. So if you are looking for something highbrow or something that really engages with the superhero genre and elevates the genre and elevates the material, this is not what you want. But if you are looking for a fun movie with great comic book action, with, I thought, a really, really heartfelt, passionate performance from Dwayne Johnson, then this is going to be a movie that you're going to enjoy.
Yeah. No,
see, that wasn't so bad, was it?
I do. I was joking and, messing with you, but I agree with you that I think there are aspects of this movie. A lot of the criticisms I've heard are fair to a certain degree, even if I don't agree with them, even if I don't feel as strongly about them as some do. I see why they're there to a certain extent. And I think no matter what, I have yet to hear anybody say, don't watch it, right? Like I have yet to hear anybody say anything other than like the worst review I've heard has been like, there's not much there, but it's at least fun. And that, okay, that's worth going to the movie theater with your significant other, friend, whatever, getting some popcorn, having a nice night out. It's worth it for sure. It's a great action flick, if nothing else. I see it as much more than that. But maybe I'll end up being in the minority once, the movie's been out for a few weeks and we start to really hear people's thoughts and opinions.
They're being overly cruel to this movie. Like I just checked right now, and Black Adam on Rotten Tomatoes is literally 40%.
For critics, right? Because the audience is like 90.
Yeah. So we're definitely looking at, but that's really like when you talk about 40% movies, that's kind of a slap in the face. Like it's one of the worst rated.
Where does that rank up on against the other films though?
The only film that's rated worse from a critical perspective is BVS at 30%. So
which is fair. That just goes to show, like, I mean, and I would argue that BVS, while certainly is a very flawed movie, and I don't particularly like it, Suicide Squad is way worse.
100%, and so is
the original Suicide Squad, not the Suicide Squad. That movie,
and Justice League is way worse than that. To be fair, no, this is rated the same level as Justice League. Like Justice League has this. Actually, no, Justice League. And
I would say that I enjoyed this more than I enjoyed Justice League for sure.
Yeah, like this is overly cruel to this movie.
Suicide Squad, just for reference, is 26%.
Ah, so much.
And then audience score is only 58%.
So Justice League is at 39%. So this is comparable to Justice League, 39 to 40.
And I honestly, I think, because I did read some of those reviews, and I really think there is something to, not just because I said it. But
Batman vs. Superman is 29%.
Yeah, I said it was.
to 63. Yeah, so they're
I think
both
there is something to be
there.
said for the fact that the critics who are reviewing this are they're doing their jobs. I don't want to like be shitting on critics here. Like they get enough of that. They are doing their jobs and they are critiquing the film as a piece of art.
Yeah.
And if, like I said, if you are going to this movie trying to find something that elevates the genre, watch a different movie. You're not going to have a good time with this. But at the same time, like, I don't think that we should let critic reviews diminish our enjoyment. And I say this not, again, I'm not trying to shit on critics, but I think this is a lesson that the whole world needs to learn of. Just because a critic is saying that this is not, in their particular opinion, a good or well-executed piece of movie, does not mean that you enjoying it, that they're saying that you're wrong. They're saying their opinion, and then you have yours. So I absolutely encourage everyone watching this to go see Black Adam. I think you will probably have a fun time now that you've set your expectations in the right place. Yeah, and I don't know where I'm going with that. Just be good to each other on the internet and stop like trying to send death threats to critics and calling other people stupid because their opinion disagrees with you. I saw a whole thing, like there were people arguing about some really dumb stuff on my Facebook earlier. Like these people were having, if you're watching this, you know who you are. These people were having a fight about whether or not it was okay to call the original production of 1776 boring. Firstly, yes, it was. Secondly, why are you fighting about that? It's real dumb.
At the end of the day, we're just talking about Cape shit, bro. Like
we tease each other a lot. We tease each other a lot, but we for any audience members who don't know us, we do actually really like each other. We are actually all friends, but we like to debate, and we definitely like to be passionate and heated, and we'll joke around with each other. But at the end of the day, there's not a single person between the three of us that thinks any less of the other one because of our opinion differs on how good a movie was or was not. So hopefully you guys can take that and be the same way, to echo.
I feel like we need to open all these live streams with a disclaimer. Fights you see come from a place of love.
No nerds were harmed in the making of this live stream.
I see us as like the Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharps of comic book stuff.
I'm going to tell you right now that
I know you have no idea.
Way over my head. I got nothing.
Well, Josh, you get what I'm saying.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and like I said, I like this film. I think it was interesting in a lot of ways, and I hope we build this out more. The next DC film we'll get to see is Shazam 2, which I believe is coming out in March. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to see if there's any ties between these two films, and to see if we might be able to get maybe a Rock cameo. Who knows? Maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe I probably am. But yeah, no.
Also, apparently, we're getting a Blue Beetle movie next year. Like,
apparently,
I'm into that.
Yes,
100%. I didn't know this was the thing. Anyway,
we'll see if DC continues to go on its win streak. But for the first one for Discovery to put out, it's not an actual disaster. So that's good to hear, at least.
The bar was very low, so congratulations on getting over it.
Congrats on not being a complete failure.
Congrats on not being Wonder Woman in 1984.
Right?
Still haven't seen it.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for coming out. Once again, if you guys haven't before, please like and subscribe to our channel. Do all the things you're supposed to on social media. Share our videos. We're very close to that 1,000 subscriber mark. 887 last I saw.
Something like that. Yeah, we're closing in on it real quick.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll hit that by the end of the year. But you guys go out, watch Black Adam. I hope you guys have a good night. See you, boys.
See you guys.